Let's be honest. We hear the word biodiversity thrown around all the time. But what does it actually mean? Well, today we're going to crack that word wide open. We're going to journey from the absolute smallest building blocks of life all the way up to the entire planet to really understand this incredible web that connects every single one of us.
So, let's just dive right in with that big question. When I say the word biodiversity, what pops into your head? Maybe a jungle packed with monkeys and birds? A vibrant coral reef?
And yeah, you're not wrong, but that's only scratching the surface. It's so much more than just a head count of animals. It's the hidden connections, the mind-boggling variety, and this amazing resilience that makes up our living world.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll nail down what biodiversity actually is. Then, we'll zoom in on a fantastic real-world example, the mega-diverse nation of India. After that, we'll zoom back out to look at the world's most critical hotspots. And finally, we'll get into why all this variety matters so much. All right, first things first, what is biodiversity? To really get it, you kind of have to think of it in three different layers.
Okay, so here's the official textbook definition from way back at the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. And yeah, I know, it sounds a little academic, doesn't it? But the magic words are right there in the middle. Diversity times within species, between species, and of ecosystems. Those are the three layers we're about to unpack.
Think of it like a camera lens. We're going to start with a super tight focus, looking at the variety hidden inside just one species. That's genetic diversity. Then we'll zoom out a bit to see the variety of all the different species living together. And finally, we'll zoom all the way out for the wide shot to the variety of entire landscapes and oceans.
So at our first level, genetic diversity is all the variety that's happening within one single species. You know this already. Just think about all the different types of mangoes or the thousands of varieties of rice. That internal variety is absolutely crucial. It's like a species survival toolkit. It's what lets it adapt and survive when things like the climate change or a new disease shows up.
Okay, zooming out to level 2, species diversity. This is the one we're all most familiar with, right? It's the incredible variety of all the different forms of life we see around us. And get this, we've described about 1.7 million species so far, but scientists think there could be as many as 12.5 million out there. It's just the sheer number of different players on the field.
And that brings us to the final wide-angle view, ecosystem diversity. This slide shows it perfectly. It's not about which ecosystem has the most species. A rainforest is incredibly dense and complex. The Arctic, it's much more sparse, but they are both critically important. This level is all about the variety of different settings, deserts, mountains, forests, oceans, and the unique job each one does to keep our planet in balance. Okay, so we have the framework down. Now, let's see how this stuff actually works in the real world. We're going to take a look at India, which is just a perfect example of what's called a mega-diverse nation, where you can see all three of these levels in action.
So what on earth does mega-diverse mean? Well, it means a country is just jam-packed with life. India, for example, is carved up into 10 totally distinct biogeographic zones. I mean, you've got everything from blistering hot deserts and soaking wet rainforests to the tallest mountains on the planet, all inside one country. And nothing illustrates that ecosystem diversity better than the animals that live there. Just look at this. On the one hand, you have the wild yak, this massive, shaggy beast built to handle the freezing, high-altitude desert of the Trans-Himalayas. And on the other, you have the tiny, endangered, lion-tailed macaque, thriving in the warm, humid rainforests of the Western Ghats. It's like two completely different planets, all within one nation. And believe me, that's just a quick peek. Each one of these zones is its own special world. You've got the super fragile Trans-Himalayas up high, the incredible Indian desert, where creatures have mastered survival without water, and then the Himalayas and Western Ghats, which are just overflowing with life. So this idea we see in places like the Western Ghats, areas that are both incredibly rich and incredibly fragile, that's not just an India thing. On a global scale, these places have a special name: biodiversity hotspots. And figuring out where they are is one of the most important things we can do to protect life on Earth. So what does it take to get the hotspot label? Well, there are two key ingredients. First, it has to be just unbelievably rich in life, with lots of endemic species. That's a fancy word for unique creatures you won't find anywhere else on the planet. And second, and this is the tough part, it has to be under constant and severe threat.
It's that combo of being priceless and in peril that makes them hotspots.
So, take a guess. How many of these absolutely mission-critical areas are there on the entire planet? Well, scientists have identified this many. 34. That's it. Just 34 designated global biodiversity hotspots. These places are the absolute crown jewels of life on Earth. They cover a tiny, tiny fraction of the planet's surface, but they hold a massive percentage of its plants and animals.
So out of those 34 critical regions on the entire globe, how many are found right in India and its immediate neighbors? The answer is this many.
Four of the planet's 34 hotspots. You've got the Western Ghats, the Himalayas, the Indo-Burma region, and Sundaland. This really brings our story full circle and shows why a country like India is so important, not just for its own heritage, but for the biodiversity of the entire world.
And this all leads us to the biggest question of all. So what? Right? Why does any of this matter? Why should we care about all this variety, from a single gene to a whole ecosystem? Let's talk about the value of all this and why it matters to every single one of us.
Well, you can think about nature's value in a couple of ways. First, you have the direct use value. This is the obvious stuff, the things we can literally harvest and use: food, wood for building, fuel, and plants for medicine. But then there's the indirect use value. Think of these as the essential services nature provides for free, like ecosystems cleaning our air and water, insects pollinating our crops, and forests keeping our climate stable.
But the value doesn't stop there. In fact, some of the most important values are the ones we don't use at all. There's the aesthetic value, the simple beauty of a landscape or an animal. There's cultural value, how nature is woven into our art, our stories, our traditions. And then you get to the really big one, ethical value.
And this gets to the core of the ethical argument. It's this powerful idea that our relationship with nature isn't just about what's in it for us. It's the idea that every single species, a unique product of millions of years of evolution, has a right to be here, totally separate from whether we find it useful or not.
And that's the final idea I want to leave you with. As humans, we are really good at putting a price tag on things we can use. But this whole journey, from a single gene to a global ecosystem, it pushes us to ask a much bigger and maybe more important question. What is the value of something just because it exists?